Meanwhile, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky has written an op-ed in the Washington Post asking, why is the Pentagon holding up Ukraine funds? In it, he writes in part, quote, headlines often say that Americans don't support U.S. aid to Ukraine, but real Americans say otherwise. They have consistently affirmed that Washington should aid Kyiv in resisting Russian aggression. Congress last year acted on that wish. Republican majorities on both Armed Services Committees authorized $400 million for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative for each of the next 2 years. Yet the Ukraine aid we passed months ago is now collecting dust at the Pentagon. When Senate appropriators have sought an explanation from the department's policy shop, led by Undersecretary Elbridge Colby, they've been stonewalled. If we're serious about drone dominance, we shouldn't sandbag a relationship with the world's foremost drone experts. And if we're keen on remaining the world's preeminent superpower, we shouldn't let unelected defense officials undermine U.S. leadership and obstruct deepening ties with Ukraine's innovative military and industrial base. What gives?
There's so much to go through right here. David French, you talk about in your latest Times piece about meeting the leader of the free world. Let's just look at this is a moment. There's sometimes in history you actually see a moment. And see things starting to change and see remarkable things happening. This past week, you have Ukraine getting 100 billion euros from the EU. And Zelensky basically saying to the United States, you don't want to help us, Donald Trump? We don't need your help. We don't need your help. You have our allies in the Gulf. What are they doing? They're begging the Ukrainians to come, to help them out, to defend their people in the war that America started. You have David Petraeus yesterday saying, do you want to see the future of warfare? Do you want to see the type of warfare that makes older weapon systems obsolete? David Petraeus says, all you have to do, look no further than Ukraine. They are doing it. And I must say also, and it is such a tragedy that Vladimir Putin is sending so many young Russian men and not so young now Russian men to their deaths. But you look at the death counts, they're just absolutely staggering on Russia's side. And David, I want you to talk about this, but I have to underline this again. I've been lied to by members of the Trump administration for a year now, telling me how weak Ukraine is, how they're about to lose the Donbass, how they need to surrender, how they need to go to the negotiating tables with their head between their, how they're holding no cards. No, history is now showing us the way it is the way it's sort of revealing itself with all these dominoes falling, that it is actually Ukraine that seems to be holding all the cards now. That's why the Saudis, that's why the Emiratis, that's why everybody in the Middle East is begging them to come and help them, because they are the future when it comes to fighting warfare.
Yeah, we're watching something really remarkable happen, because if you go back a year ago, Trump very famously says to Ukraine, you don't have any cards. That's in the middle of a major Russian offensive. Russia was inching across the Donbass. There was a lot of pessimism about Ukraine's future. And look what's happened in a year. In a year, you've had Ukraine stopping this Russian offensive well short of its goals. You've had Ukraine recapturing some key ground. You've had Ukraine gaining in confidence on the battlefield, even as American aid diminishes, to such an extent that we saw something really remarkable in the Persian Gulf, which is Ukraine fighting for its life is powerful enough to extend aid to the Gulf states who were unprepared for the drone threat, and even to start to talk about extending assistance to the U.S., which was unprepared, not fully prepared for the drone threat. So what you've got is Zelensky is quite obviously gaining more confidence right now, because I think it has clicked in his mind that he's the commander of arguably the most potent ground force in the world right now. This drone revolutionized Ukrainian army is unlike anything that we've seen. It is the pioneer in modern warfare. And in many ways, we're behind. We still have a much more powerful military overall because of our Navy, because of our Air Force, our overwhelming air power that Ukraine doesn't have. But this is a very powerful country led by a man who is exerting increasing leadership on the global stage, who is helping Europe regain its own backbone and sense of self-confidence. In a lot of ways, if you want to see the heart of the defense of liberty in the world, you're going to find it more in Kyiv than almost any other capital in the Western world right now. And that is not a development that even a year ago people would have expected.
Vladimir Putin expected to take Kyiv in 3 days. Here we are all these years later. And in Kyiv, you have leaders that escaped that first night where Zelensky delivered that extraordinary message that our children and grandchildren will be hearing about and reading about in history books, watching in history books, that extraordinary message saying we are here, we are alive, we are fighting back. And now we're in a position where we're watching the Ukrainians, Willie, in the most extraordinary way, out of necessity, out of the defense of their homeland, out of the defense of their children who are being kidnapped, out of the defense of their grandmothers who are being targeted by Putin for murder. They have created weapon systems now that actually are the envy of the world, that make older weapon systems obsolete. It is an extraordinary thing to behold.
Yeah, there's something incredible happening, which is that in the midst of its war, Ukraine is providing the United States and other nations with technology, defense technology, these drones where they've become the world leader. So it's kind of a stunning move to have, David, the president of Ukraine, in the middle of a fight for his country's life, saying, you know what, Donald Trump, United States, you don't want to help me the way I think we need to be helped. OK, I guess we have to accept that, but I'm willing to help you. You should use these drones in your war with Iran.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that's so stunning about the last several months is this the reversal of fortune on the battlefield is largely driven by Ukrainian weapons produced in Ukraine with tactics developed in Ukraine, technologies developed in Ukraine. It's not as if they've counterattacked with a phalanx of American-made tanks and weapons. No, they have counterattacked with a phalanx of Ukrainian-made weapons. Now, that's not to say that they don't rely an awful lot still on Western weapons. They absolutely do. But if you're talking about the core innovations on the battlefield, they're Ukrainian. And you can see Ukrainian confidence growing right now because they have cracked a code on the battlefield that the Russians have not been able to answer. They've cracked a code that in many ways even America and our allies haven't been able to answer in the Persian Gulf. That's why they're so valuable in providing assistance now. This is a remarkable turn of events. As Joe said, go back to 2022. The expectation was 72 hours, 96 hours in Kyiv Falls. And here we are years later with a new world power named Ukraine that is a leader of the free world. This is not something that people anticipated.
And the Russians can't keep up with the technology because they're the best and brightest fled. They fled because of a stupid war, because of a stupid invasion they wanted no part of. And in the United States, you just wonder how much the slashing of research and development that this Trump administration has focused on. The smartest and brightest minds being kicked out of America, the smartest and brightest and most advanced departments in our best universities in America, which are some of the best universities on the planet, they're being warfare in the Trump administration against them and against the research. It's just pure insanity. Caddy, let's add a dimension to this as we continue talking about Ukraine. Let's add the dimension of a Netanyahu. Netanyahu now joins the league after reading what he is doing, after reading what Zelensky has caught him doing. He joins Orban, Trump, Le Pen, all of these other anti-democratic, autocratic wannabes in supporting Vladimir Putin. And the madness of it all is that he's supporting Putin, who is supporting Iran. It's just like Netanyahu, in the weeks leading up to October 7th, was demanding that Qatar give Hamas hundreds of millions of dollars to continue propping up that terrorist organization. And so yesterday, you had Netanyahu being caught red-handed, helping the Russian invaders. You had a former Mossad chief who was touring the West Bank saying, my mother was a victim of the Holocaust. What's happening to Palestinians reminds me a lot of what has happened to Jews in the past. It was an absolutely stunning situation. And all this is on Netanyahu. And 60% of Americans now, 60%, I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. 60% of Americans are opposed to Israel. This is all on Benjamin Netanyahu's back, and things just keep getting worse as they continue Netanyahu's endless war so he stays out of jail.
Yeah, Haaretz is reporting, the Israeli paper is reporting, it's not just one shipment, but since 2023, there have been 30 shipments, according to their reporting, of this grain that comes from Ukrainian land that the Russians have taken, and now they're selling it. And as you say, I mean, the absurdity of this, that the Israelis are paying money to the Russians so the Russians can buy drones from the Iranians, thereby funding the Iranian war machine, which Israel is now fighting. I mean, it makes no logical sense, but it doesn't. I saw that the former Mossad chief in the West Bank, and it was stunning what he was saying. Kind of language he would use for what Israel is doing at the moment in the West Bank under Benjamin Netanyahu. None of this is going to help Benjamin Netanyahu's standings, which have cratered in the U.S. I've rarely seen polls move so swiftly against a country, and it's not just amongst Democrats. This is amongst Republicans as well, and particularly amongst younger Americans who, in about a generation, will be the ones in power, and Israelis must know that. If I was sitting in Israel right now, I would be very worried about the long-term prospects for continued support, financial and military support, from the United States.